So if you're like me and you keep a lot of insect-eating reptiles like this bearded dragon and these mountain dragons behind me, a great way to save money is to actually keep and breed your feeder insects yourself. So that's what we're going to cover in this video today. The average weekly cost for buying insects for a single reptile might be about $10 a week. But that's just maybe if you're just buying crickets or something like that. When you factor in a nice varied diet with a lot of different feeders, it quickly adds up. So to keep all my little lizards fat and happy with a lot of bugs in their belly, I breed all mine myself, so let's go check out my setup. So when it comes to cultivating my own invertebrates to feed my reptiles, I have 4 main things I breed myself. So over here, we've got the really commonly commercially available mealworms. These are the beetles. And under here, see some of the worms starting to come through. These guys have been breeding. Hopefully you can see the little worms there. They're all there, coming up through. They're more of a treat for your reptiles as they're pretty high in fat and the exoskeleton's a bit hard to digest. But a good addition. And then over here we have the main food. So this is my roach bin. And these are speckled feeder roaches or wood roaches. Woodies they're called. And these guys just breed like absolute crazy. Super easy to take care of and they're very nutritious for your reptiles. Better to feed than crickets, that's for sure. And yeah, the only problem with them is they can climb up walls and they like to hide away, so I like to tom feed them. And over here we have something that's a bit less common. I started growing these myself after collecting them from the wild. And these are, of course, wood lice or slaters, isopods, whatever you want to call them. This is one species here, and there's also little springtails growing in there as well. These are the ones that grow larger, these isopods. Pretty cool. They breed quite slow though. And then over here we have the more common ones you'll find around your backyard. These ones don't roll up into a ball. You can actually see there's little babies all there on that. So these are the main things I breed. And I'm going to show you exactly how I do that. Quick run through on each different thing. How you can do it yourself. It's really easy, it doesn't take much time. So starting with mealworms. Mealworms are really easy to breed yourself and really easy to find. Pretty much any pet shop usually has some you can buy. I'd normally start off with like a 100-gram pack. I just dump them all in a big tub like this, which has, if you come in close, have a look, substrate of oat bran, or you can just use normal oats, I believe people use. And then also give them some carrot for a bit of moisture, which they've all eaten. I've got to give them some more. There's some. Give them carrots so they can have moisture to drink from. And then you let them turn into beetles. And then they start breeding and they produce more baby mealworms all there in the soil. And they grow up and then you can just keep repeating the cycle. Extremely easy. As they eat through all this oat bran, you'll have to top it up and replace it with some new stuff. And they're really that simple. Like I said before, they're a bit more of a treat for your reptile. You don't want to feed them that often, but it's a good hit of fibre every now and then for them. So next we have my staple feeder insects. These are my wood roaches. These guys are a bit more involved than the mealworms, but it's still nothing compared to crickets. So for these guys, you want to get a nice large tub for them, and you're going to have to line the top here with, this is what's called fluon. Basically stops them from being able to climb past it. It's like an insect repellent. They can't grip onto it, so they can't climb out, because these guys can climb walls. That's probably the hardest part about them. Otherwise, you just set it up. You can have a look with a bunch of egg crates here. That's what they live in. I like to stack them up so the crap drops through. But as you can see, there's a lot in there, and they just live in there. So these guys are super easy to feed when just growing them out and breeding them. I just give them some dog food biscuits and some carrot. Super simple. Just keep topping that up, and they should breed no worries. What's great about these is they don't lay eggs. They actually give birth to live young, and they can all live in there together, unlike crickets. They won't eat each other. So it just keeps growing and growing, building and building. One thing I have to mention though is definitely invest in some sort of protection when you're dealing with these guys, like some gloves, maybe a dust mask, something like that, because you can actually develop an allergic reaction to these if you touch them too much and get it in your sinuses and stuff like that. I've had it a bit in the past, but I've been taking precautions to not get it any worse, and it seems to be working. But I know some people that get just a full flare-up allergic reaction to them after they've exposed themselves for too long, so just keep that in mind. Otherwise, these guys make a great feeder. Super easy. And don't forget, you of course want to be dusting down your feeders before you feed them where it's needed with calcium and vitamin supplements, as well as gut loading the animals before you feed them off. Like with the roaches, I said I feed them dog food and carrot to grow them up. That's great for growing up and getting them breeding, but before you feed, you want to make sure they're gut loaded with something really good. So now we get on to a really versatile little bunch of animals here. These guys have multiple uses. You can use them as feeders, as well as cleanup crew in bioactive enclosures, which is really awesome. So these are of course the isopods, and the care for these guys is pretty simple. The only problem is no one ever really sells these at any pet shops or anything like that. So most of the time you have to go out and collect a bunch in the wild. And like with anything here, if you want to breed it, you have to start with as many as you can. I remember I started my original isopod culture with about 12 because that's all I could find. And it took a long time to get started because it had such low numbers. And for that reason I'd also use a small enclosure like this for them. But yeah, if you can start with as many as you can, that's going to be great. So super easy with these guys. It's a nice thick layer of substrate, and that's going to be something that holds humidity quite well. I use coir peat, or in this one I've started using a bunch of yuki mulch mixed with coir peat. Anything like that, sort of soily, really nice, that you can wet down and stays nice and damp for them. And then you just cover it with a bunch of leaf litter, bits of bark. I like using bits of bark and bits of wood for them, as well as cardboard. They really like living in between cardboard and feeding off it, because these guys actually eat decaying matter, and they actually like eating mold and things like that. So as mold and fungus and stuff grows on the bottom of these things in the sort of damp environment, they like to eat that and they grow off that. So these are the typical sorts of setups we have. Lots of bits of bark. They all like to hide underneath. There's a big one there. And they like these sort of layers of cardboard as well. Now for food, as well as eating all that decaying matter, they'll also eat other things. I like to give them banana skins. So I read somewhere they like to eat that, and they seem to really gravitate towards that. As well as I've seen people just chop in big bits of potato like this, and they sort of make their own caves in there. It seems to be working well. Otherwise, I also sprinkle in a bit of the oat bran, so you could have a 2-for-1 here. You can use your mealworms here. You can just grab a pinch of the oat bran and just sprinkle it in there, and that'll start to mold, and they'll love to eat that and get some nutrients from it. And just anything like that. So the thing with these guys, they take longer to breed than the other stuff, so it's going to be a bit more time consuming in that regard. They're not going to be as reliable of a feeder source as the other things. So these are just some of the things that I breed myself, purely because they're really easy, gives good nutrition to my animals, and it's not very time consuming. I will of course feed my animals other live feeders, and I'll just buy them occasionally, like silkworms, things like that, but just as a rare treat. This stuff here is what they mostly get, especially the roaches, and then the other stuff, a bit more of a treat. Remember, it's always best to give your animals a really varied diet, so I like to mix it up, give them a whole bunch of different things all throughout the year. Just keep it interesting for them, and they seem to do great. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.